watching this video for the first time, you should probably go and look at our first part to this video, which was published a week ago.
So this is a 12-part video, and by 12 parts I'll be like 1, and then you'll know, and then I'm gonna run out of fingers, so then Jen's gonna help me out.
Okay.
Let's practice. 11. We're good.
How about I start on the fingers and you put up the last 2?
Okay.
That way you can focus on the things. Okay.
Okay. So basically, if you're watching this video, chances are your trans partner has come out as a trans partner. Maybe they weren't trans before. Maybe obviously they weren't. You know, but maybe you're just starting to date them now, and you know that they're trans, or maybe you were dating them before and now they've come out as trans. Who knows? Point is that here we are, and they've obviously come out to you if you're here. The number one thing I can say to you is do not panic. Number 1, do not panic. It's probably just going to make things worse if you do panic. Now, chances are, if you're here, they've already come out to you, and that means they already know your reaction, which kind of sucks, not gonna lie.
You probably panicked. Even if you didn't show it, you probably said, "Holy shit," on the inside.
The most important thing to do from this point on is to be supportive, which is, number 3. It's important to be caring and supportive. If you aren't okay with this, don't lie to them and tell them that you are. But if you love them enough to try and work on this, then, tell them that, and just tell them it's going to take some time for you to understand and move on from there, because it's really, really important to be completely honest, but still try and be there for them and still try to be as supportive as you possibly can.
Like this. I'm like, I understand that you're going through some issues right now, and I don't really understand what they are, and I don't know how to deal with it, but I will work on it.
There you go. You can try that. Maybe do it your own way.
Yeah.
But, Which brings us to point number 4. It was probably extremely hard for them to come out to you. Like, I'm talking extremely hard for them to come out to you. So, please, I would say, don't make it any more difficult than it has to be. Like, they probably, you are their partner, and if they really, really love you, then they're not going to want you to leave them because of this. And truly, this is who they are, and they can't be changed, they can't be fixed. There's nothing to change or fix. So, it's going to be very difficult for them to come out to you, and chances are they've already tried to keep this as secret and down as possible and try to get over it in some sort of way or another. But I mean, it's probably very, very difficult for them. So our advice would be to be understanding and try and be very careful with your wording, and try and just be there, be helpful.
Be as accepting as you possibly can.
Yeah.
We know it's hard for you to be accepting because it probably came as a giant shock. It might have not, but it probably did. So you need to be as accepting as you possibly can, so both
Definitely.
of you are comfortable.
Definitely. That brings us to point number 5. If they came out to someone that isn't you first, you need to remember that it's perfectly okay. They are probably very nervous about telling you in particular, especially if you guys are in a serious relationship. And I mean, maybe he or she wasn't ready. Maybe you guys are married. Who knows? The point is that they were probably very upset about it and very worried. So maybe they did not come out to you first because they were afraid of the repercussions of that action. Because there are a fair number of people who are transgendered and have come out to their partners and then have been left shortly afterwards.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't trust you. It just means they need some encouragement from someone that they probably know will accept them.
Yes.
Because it's not always 100%. If you as a partner will be as accepting of them.
Yes. So, now that you know, and now that you know it's okay, and sort of not to panic, I guess the next step for you would be to do some research on the topic. Again, if you want to go to our last video, we'll put a link in the description, hey?
Click on my face, and that will bring you to our last video where we talk a little bit about trans asterisk people.
Well, do your research. We have some research information, some actual links in the description of the Jen's Head video, and that one is important because it tells you a lot of information about the trans community and what that means. So you need to remember that they feel like they are not in the right body. So in that sense, you need to just, understand it a little bit more. So I have a bit of a unique experience with this in particular because I've actually dated 2 trans men, and they have both, but I was dating them as females first, and then they came out to me as trans during our relationship. The first time was my ex-boyfriend, Logan. And Logan and I were together for 3 years before he came out to me as a trans man. And I did not know what it meant to be transgendered. And he actually did it in a very poor way. I mean, everyone has their way of doing things, and everyone has their way of, telling people things. But he passed me a note in class, actually. He wrote it on a piece of paper, and he passed me the note. And it was sort of like, yeah, I need to talk to you about something. I'm transgendered. And I was like, what the what does that mean? And you honestly had to know this guy. I mean, he was so indecisive about absolutely everything. So honestly, I really thought it was just a phase. And I mean, obviously it's not just a phase for most trans people, and it wasn't for him either. However, he went through these types of phases all his life. And I had known him for 8 years. I've known him for 9 now. We're not friends anymore because we broke up, but I mean, we were friends for 9 years. And I mean, he was always going through these stages of who he is and what he wanted to look like and blah blah blah. But really, because he was going through these phases, this is the reason was because of the fact that he was transgendered and didn't know about it, didn't know what transgendered was. And once he found out, he told me about it, and I lost my shit, unfortunately. It was the worst reaction I could have had because I was the only person he trusted, and once he told me, he didn't want to tell anyone else. I had a really poor reaction to it, I'm not gonna lie, and it made me grow as a person because once he and I had a really good heart-to-heart about it, I understood, and that was the defining moment because basically the way he explained it to me was our traditional gender roles was very they were very, very stereotypical. I mean, we were in a lesbian relationship prior to him coming out, so I was always the girl of the relationship, if that ambiguous the girl, which is obviously not a thing, but we had a very obvious gender roles as him being more masculine, dressing more masculine, feeling more masculine, acting more masculine, and myself looking more feminine, acting more feminine, etc., etc. I mean, this is not anything new, but basically the way he explained it was don't you feel it too? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I'm not female. And I was just like, what do you mean? Because I didn't understand any of the concepts. It's just, to me, it was just, I don't want to be female anymore, changing genders. That's the way I was understanding it on that level. I mean, I knew nothing about it. I didn't know anything about it until he told me about it. And I mean, I obviously, I tried to understand and work with him, and then I finally understood, and we continued to date until we broke up for totally unrelated to his transition. It made me understand in that way, and that made me feel better about it. My current boyfriend, however, Simon, it was very different. I kind of always knew it was something like that going on with Simon. And I mean, really, the way I explain it to some people sometimes when people ask me about it is that, you know, like, his favorite movie was Boys Don't Cry, you know, like the Brandon Tina story. That, really horrific. His favorite movie was that, and I was like, oh, okay. So really, I should have, that was my, like, kind of defining moment, like, oh, okay, so there's something more here. And then a few weeks later, he kind of made, like, some sort of, like under the carpet thing about he was going to wait for his parents to die off, or his grandparents to sort of, you know, no longer exist, and then maybe transition, because it's something he's always thought about. One night, we were actually having a few drinks. We were going to go to a party, and trigger warning, about to get graphic, we were having sex. We were in the middle of having sex, and he was very, 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 very drunk, okay? Very drunk. Like, I'm talking half a bottle of vodka drunk. Like, very drunk. And he stopped and looked at me and was just like, I think I'm transgendered. And I was like, what? Like, I was very drunk. We were in the middle of having sex. Like, it wasn't even like it was like normal sex. It was like shower sex, and it was like awkward, you know? Like, mid-sex, just looks at me, I think I'm transgendered. And I was like, oh, alright, that's fine. He goes, can we go call Logan? And I was like, okay. Because he kind of didn't like him at all, wanted to kill him, that sort of thing. You know how those boys work, you know. But I mean, yeah, so he spent the rest of the night crying his eyes out because he was transgendered and didn't feel like he was in the right body, wanting to speak to my ex, and eventually I just set him up on the couch with a glass of water and some bread, and I was going home, and he looked at me and he said, will you still love me if I'm your boyfriend and not your girlfriend? And I actually cried. And I actually told him that he was always my boyfriend and never my girlfriend, so. But, I mean, I'm gonna cry. But yeah, that's I mean, I dealt with them both very differently because I knew how to deal with it the second time. Not saying that there will be a second time for any of you guys, but I mean, just make it like, you know, make it a happy experience, make it a memory. Like, if you're not comfortable with being someone who is transgendered, don't, just be honest with them. I'm sure they'll understand. Okay, number 10. Really fun. Damage control. If you reacted similarly to the way I did when I was the first time round, you need to understand that you need to, like, apologize and understand, like, explain to them that you did not understand the concepts, and maybe you didn't know what it was. If you didn't know what it was, be completely honest with them. That's probably the number one thing to any relationships, just 100% honesty. So, I mean, if you were super honest with them, then they probably will be very okay with it. I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't be. This is a very hard thing to understand and wrap your head around. As Simon says, you don't ask questions, you just accept it. But sometimes it's not that easy, and I understand that. And so should they. You really need to apologize for the way that you reacted, because your reaction may have stopped them from coming out to any other friends or family. You need to really, really apologize and explain to them, like, that, like, again, that you really didn't mean to. The next thing that you can do, the biggest thing that you can actually do, is talk to them. Make sure you know their preferred pronouns and the name that they have chosen. Like, you say to them, like, basically, yeah, I understand what it means now. I understand all of this, or some of it. If you want to explain it to me more, then that's perfectly fine, then you do that. And I'm going to ask questions, and you got to understand that I'm not trying to be offensive in the questions that I ask. I'm just trying to understand, and 90% of any trans person populations will tell you when you're being offensive, and but still answer your question in an educational way for the most part. So, I mean, just make sure that you know their pronouns, their preferred pronouns, and their preferred name. I mean, I know the next morning I texted Simon and I was just like, so how you doing? And he was just like, I'm so hungover. And, like, I was like, do you remember what happened last night? And he was just like, yeah, I think so. And I'm like, so what's your new name, hon? And he was like, I don't know, can you help me pick one? And I did, I helped him pick one. But I mean, it's a very personal thing. They might already have one picked out, they might not have anything picked out, they might need your help, they might want to look through baby books. It's all very, very complex. So I mean, like, it's all, you just need to, like, one of the things you can do that really means the most to some trans people is using the preferred names, using the preferred pronouns, because I mean, I know the hardest thing for me is not the preferred name, but actually the pronouns, and not even like, not, it's more so just the remembering to switch. And I mean, most trans people understand that, like, it's difficult. I mean, people, you've known them, you've met them as this other person, like their other name, like different gender, different name, different pronouns. So most of them understand that it's going to be difficult to just switch automatically. So I mean, like, most of them will be okay with some leeway as long as you are actually trying. When when it gets to the point where you're not actually trying and you're just saying, like, their birth name, and you're saying their, like, at birth pronouns, that becomes offensive. And that's when it becomes like, you're not trying, you are actually just doing this so I feel bad about myself, and you really have to be careful of that. So that is the main thing. So that was, oh, that was number 11, sorry. And number 12. Number 12 is actually about YouTube. Now, if you're here, you came to the right place, because, you know, YouTube's YouTube. One of the best resources for information and research and support is YouTube with regards to the trans community. I am a huge fan of FTM Transtastic and FTM Kingdom. They're both really good sources for FTM trans people. I'm not too sure on MTF YouTube stuff, but there is tons of support. There is so much out there. I mean, you wouldn't even know these days about who's trans and who's not. And I mean, most of the people on YouTube are out and proud. Sometimes they're stealth, but usually they're out. And I mean, it's not something that, like, they're usually very open. Like, they're very open for questions. They're very helpful in any way that they can be. And I mean, understanding the process that it is being, like, the transition itself, that in itself is probably the scariest thing for a partner. That, you know, they're going from this one person that you know and love, and they're going to end up like this person who you also know and love, but they're going to be different somehow. And that fundamental change between here and here is huge to this, to a partner. And usually the trans people, the trans end of the partnership, they don't really understand what it is that you're so worried about. I found in my cases, I mean, I guess they have some idea, but I don't think they fully understand. And I clung on to little things like, oh, your face is different, and your voice, and calling the voicemail, even though, you know, just because we didn't get a good recording of his voice before he started testosterone. But I mean, I don't know. It's a lot of things, and I mean, YouTube is a great support for understanding the process of the transition. However, it's not a great place for trans partners, which is why I am doing this. Yep, that's why we made this a segment in our little channel, because there's not a lot of places for partners to sort of just be accepted. And that's why, if you watched our last video, go to your LGBT places on campus, if you go to university, in school, if you go to school, Planned Parenthood, anywhere, like, just do it. They are great support systems. They make you feel really good about yourself. And when I say really good, I feel like I have a whole pressure lifted off my chest and thrown out the window, is what I feel like. Which is good. Yes, because I talked to them today. Or last week. 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. Not the point. The point is that they're great support systems, and YouTube, Tumblr, I would not go with Twitter. Twitter's probably not the best one, but YouTube and Tumblr, 100%. Because they're very helpful, and most of them are very open to hearing what you have to say and asking questions. And of course, if you are going to ask a question and you're not sure if you're going to be stepping on any toes, say so first. Like, as a disclaimer. Like,
Yeah.
I don't really know a whole lot about the trans community, and then ask your question and be like, I really don't know if this is offensive or not. Please direct me in the right way. Because I promise you, if there's one group of people who are very touchy, it is the trans community. They are very easily offended, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
So just be careful. Don't tread on any toes, you know? That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Bye.